Good afternoon or good morning, depending on your area of the country. Welcome to our webinar today, The Role of Flash Storage and Converged Infrastructure. Today's webinar is brought to you by Actual Tech Media, Pure Storage, and LifeScript, and we're happy to have you here today. We have some amazing speakers for you today. One of the things we love to do with webinars is be able to couple customers, people who have actually bought a solution, with vendors, and we've done that today. From Pure Storage today, we have Meyer DeWaker. He is the product management leader for FlashStack. Thank you, Meyer, for joining us today. And from LifeScript, a Pure Storage customer, we have Jack Hogan. He's the co-founder. He's a co-founder and CTO of LifeScript, and he's a Pure Storage customer. And Jack, thank you for being here today as well.
Thanks a lot, Scott.
And my name is Scott Lowe. I'm a partner with Actual Tech Media, and I'll be moderating today's webinar and providing some introduction around converged infrastructure. If you'd like to connect with any of us on Twitter, you can find us at Actual Tech Media, at Other Scott Lowe, and all of the other fine names you see on your screen. We'd love to have you follow us on Twitter if you'd like to continue to learn about Pure, about FlashStack, and about what Actual Tech Media events are coming to you soon. We're going to start today with sort of an overview of how flash storage is changing the game when it comes to overall storage consumption, and particularly when it comes to converged infrastructure. We'll then provide you with an update on the state of the converged infrastructure market, and then we're going to turn over to Pure so they can tell you about their FlashStack solution and what makes it so unique and compelling for customers. And then we're going to hear from a customer. Why did they choose FlashStack over, for example, hyperconverged infrastructure? And what are some of the benefits and outcomes that LifeScript has experienced as a result of their adoption of FlashStack with Pure Storage? At the very end of today's event, we'll be doing a prize giveaway. We'll be giving away a Google Nexus 6P 32 gigabyte. You can see the beautiful thing on your screen, and we'll give one of those away at the end of the event after Q&A. So let's start with what is converged infrastructure. Well, when we really think about what we used to do in the past, we used to buy infrastructure that was sort of cobbled together. We'd have to build it ourselves. We'd have to integrate it. We'd have to do lots of testing. Well, when we think about converged infrastructure, one of the goals is to make things easier and more economical. When we think about the data center, when we think about IT, one of the things that we're seeing today is really a drive towards simplicity. There's not a lot of tolerance from the business today around really, quote-unquote, playing with technology. Really, they're after solutions, they're after outcomes. Once a purchase has been made, there's not a real appetite waiting months before they can begin to realize a return on that investment. When we think about converged infrastructure, we're thinking about something that can be very quickly deployed, that we know is going to work because it's pre-configured, it's pre-validated, all the components are going to work together, and that's what we really need. One of the risks we have with buying and going it alone with technology is that we might buy something that doesn't quite work together with something we already have. So we have to do lots of testing to make sure we don't run into a bad situation. It's also pre-tuned. And what I mean by that is we have now the capability to have infrastructure that we don't have to turn lots of what I've heard affectionately referred to as nerd knobs. I don't really like that phrase, but it's something I've heard before. And it's sort of accurate to a point. We don't have to actually turn lots of knobs and dials. Things work for our applications and our workloads the way that we want them to work. And from a support standpoint, we get the holy grail. We get unified support. We get one throat to choke. All the phrases you've heard about of desires when it comes to overall support in the past. We want one company we can call when there's a problem with the infrastructure in any way. And when we look at Converge, we're bringing everything into the equation here. We're bringing compute, we're bringing storage, we're bringing networking, we're bringing the software layer, hypervisor, and good things like that. So we're going to bring all the stuff together that makes the complete core of the data center work. All the application workload support functions are going to be brought into a converged infrastructure, and then the business can then focus on outcomes rather than having IT focused on constant inputs and playing with things. And that's what we're going to discuss here. When we looked at things in the past, a lot of things have happened to get us to where we are. But one of the things that's happened in recent years is we've begun to see a continued rise in virtualization. Now, this seems like something we talked about 10 years ago, how virtualized are we? But we still see lots of organizations that are working hard to virtualize more and bigger workloads. And as this has picked up steam, convergence is allowing us to scale more quickly and really deploy virtualization for even more and bigger workloads. We also get ease of deployment, and I mentioned that a little bit earlier. We get something that's very simple to deploy. Rather than having to build all the components and configure all of the components ourselves, we can actually have something that comes ready to go. It comes out of the box, we plug it in, we go on our merry way. And so we don't have to think about something taking weeks or even days necessarily. We can have a solution up and running in hours once it arrives. Simplified support, we talked about having a single point of support, which makes it much easier to support and our operational efforts when it comes to our infrastructure. And we also get modified economics. We get much more of an ability to sort of take a cloud-like look at what we're doing. So we can start to think about more pay-as-you-go, pay-as-you-grow, however you want to look at it. And rather than really having to buy a whole bunch of stuff up front and then hopefully we eventually get a return on that investment over time. One of the things I want to point out before we move on is we will be taking questions at the end of today's event. So please make liberal use of the questions pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. We will be taking Q&A, and the more questions we ask, the better. We're happy to answer all of your questions as we go through today's events. So let's look at sort of how we got to where we are. When we looked at the late 90s, we started to deploy shared storage. It allowed the data center to really grow from a storage perspective, and that's become sort of the building blocks for a lot of what we would look at legacy data centers at this point. Then we had VMware hit in 2002-ish. So virtualization brought on rapid server consolidation, lots of new opportunities for the business to do things a little bit differently. But then we started to see scaling woes. Provision and performance became challenging at scale. Companies started to have trouble deploying, for example, those quote-unquote monster VMs. So then we saw the first emergence of converged infrastructure, something along the lines of vBlock in 2009. And these are more reference architecture type infrastructure back then, where we were able to buy things all at once, but they were relatively rigid. We'll see a little bit more about that in just a minute. What we're seeing now is, in recent years, we're seeing a desire for simplicity in the data center, not something that's going to require a lot of manipulation, something the business can simply leverage. And then fast forward to today, and flash continues to march towards data center dominance. It's hard to say we're going to see the death of disk in the next couple of years, but as flash continues to grow in overall size and it continues to get less expensive, we're going to start to see very few reasons for people to buy disk. And in the future, we should be looking at an all-flash world, and that's what we're looking at in the next few years, is more all-flash data centers on the market. But we also want to couple that with simplicity and some of those economic benefits that we talked about just a minute ago. So when we look at the overall initial converged infrastructure solutions that were on the market, it made procurement and interoperability a breeze. So it was easy to buy something. You simply call the vendor and say, give me one, and they might want a credit card at the same time, but they're going to make you pay for it. But you have to procure things rather than separately. You procure them all at once and deploy them all at once. And things are going to work, and you have single vendor support. But in those early iterations of converged infrastructure, we didn't always have the ability to configure things the way we wanted to. They were relatively rigid. And we didn't have an ability to really think about things from a best-in-breed standpoint. We had to really kind of take what we got and just accept it to a point. And it was often based on just new combinations of legacy technology. So some parts of this whole process were very helpful, but some of it was relatively limited as well. When we start to think about today, we want to see things a lot different. Why do we want flash storage at the center of a converged infrastructure solution? Well, first of all, you can't argue with performance. Nothing beats flash when it comes to overall performance. And an all-flash data center is going to perform far better than one based on disk. And we start to have an end to storage-induced performance problems. Basically, there's enough IOPS and throughput to go around for all workloads. And believe it or not, even from a cost standpoint, flash storage in a converged infrastructure can be pretty compelling. The right flash solutions have all kinds of data reduction capabilities built into the platform, data deduplication, data compression, and things like that. And so because of that, we're getting really great levels of data reduction, which can actually reduce our overall storage footprint. And as a result, we can lower our overall costs for that storage. And again, that footprint, that data center rack space that we have to dedicate for flash or for, legacy storage. When we start to think about data reduction, when we move to a flash footprint with reduction, we're able to really save a lot of rack space and reduce our data center footprint. And as a result, we also have lower our power and cooling costs, our rack unit costs, and all the things that come along with it. But I can speak until I'm blue in the face, but I won't, about all of this. I'm going to turn it over now to Pure Storage. Meyer DeWaker, Product Management Leader for Pure Storage. Meyer, I'm going to give you control.
Thanks, Scott.
You're all set.
Thank you. And good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Meyer DeWaker. I'm a product manager at Pure Storage, and I'm responsible for our FlashStack initiative. So what I want to do today is talk to you about the FlashStack program, what it is, and how it differentiates from some of the other offerings that are in the market. And I'll talk to you about the different offerings we have, how we provide support on FlashStack, which will give you a fairly good idea of what this solution is and how you can potentially explore using this in your environment. So let's really start with the basics. So FlashStack is our all-flash converged infrastructure offering. It's tested and validated by Pure Storage. We use our partner ecosystem to really design, implement, and get it supported in customer environments. We use components from Pure Storage and Cisco to build FlashStack, and we also provide a choice of various different hypervisors from VMware, from Microsoft, to build out these solutions. Now, one of the really nice things about FlashStack is that it pretty much covers all the major data center workloads you can expect to deploy within your data center. So everything from business applications to server and desktop virtualization, we have solutions for all of these in the market today for FlashStack. Another benefit of FlashStack is that it provides a very modular and scalable design. So you can start small and you can grow the FlashStack deployment as the needs of your environment grows. So in addition to FlashStack, we also introduced a new offering called FlashStack Mini. So this is an offering that we brought to market just this past month. So FlashStack Mini is basically targeted towards the needs of small to medium-sized customers. So FlashStack, which is the main offering in the family, was introduced about 18 months ago, and we saw a lot of success with FlashStack. And one of the things that kept coming back in terms of customer feedback was that we needed a solution for our small to medium-sized customers. So taking that feedback and really leveraging the new product, which is FlashArray M10, which is the entry-level flash solution from Pure Storage, we built out this solution called FlashStack Mini. So FlashStack Mini is really geared up towards addressing the needs of the small and medium-sized IT environments. It's again, it uses the Pure Storage FlashArray, which is 100% flash. We can deploy various different workloads on FlashStack Mini. And the really nice thing about FlashStack Mini is that the form factor is just 9U. So we're using the Pure Storage FlashArray M10, which is a 3U storage box, and the 6U of compute capacity, which comes from the UCS Mini platform from Cisco. So the really nice thing about this platform is that it starts at a price point of below $100,000, which is very palatable for some of the small and medium-sized IT shops that typically are looking to use this solution. So I want to spend a few minutes talking about the differences between FlashStack and FlashStack Mini. So in this slide, let's just take a quick look at the differences between the two. So starting out with the environment fit, so FlashStack Mini is, as I mentioned, mainly geared up towards the needs of the small, medium-sized environments, that also some branch offices. The typical use cases that we expect to see on FlashStack Mini are VDI deployments, workload consolidation for SMB customers, and also if this gets deployed in some of the larger environments, potentially for isolated application deployment. So if you have, let's say, a standalone deployment of VDI environment or maybe a SQL or an Oracle, FlashStack Mini can be a really good fit for use cases like that. In terms of scale, we are using the FlashArray M10, which gives you 25 terabytes of usable capacity. We can put 8 compute nodes in one single chassis of UCS Mini, but UCS Mini can scale up to 16 nodes. So starting out really with 1 or 2 nodes of compute, you can go as high as 16 nodes with FlashStack Mini. And then in terms of the hardware components, as I mentioned, it's FlashArray M10 and UCS Mini from Cisco. The really nice thing about UCS Mini is that it does not require an MDS switch, which is the networking switch for storage. We don't need that switch at all. There is a fabric interconnect right behind the UCS Mini chassis, which is where storage directly plugs in. So there's really no need for a SAN switch to manage storage when you're using FlashStack Mini. So that really helps in terms of driving the cost down of the UCS Mini platform. Now, if you compare that with FlashStack, FlashStack is really geared up towards the enterprise and large enterprise environments. The typical use cases that we have seen people deploy on FlashStack are tier 1 applications, analytics workloads, and then really data center consolidation also remains a very strong use case for FlashStack. So what we see typically with flash-based deployments of IT infrastructure is that people start out with isolated deployments of use cases with Flash, but then they quickly realize that there is a lot more capacity and space available, and then they can really expand that to address other workloads. So data center workload consolidation remains a very strong use case for FlashStack. In terms of scale, we can easily scale FlashStack to half a petabyte of usable capacity. In one rack, you can get up to 32 compute nodes, but UCS from Cisco supports up to 160 compute nodes in one single domain. So, a typical environment, while it may be 32 compute nodes, you can have as high as 160 compute nodes in one single deployment. The FlashStack, the main product, uses our FlashArray M20, M50, and M70 products. It uses Nexus switches, and we typically use UCS B-Series blades, but we can also support rack-mount servers, which is the C-Series from Cisco. So the typical components we have in FlashStack are the pure storage flash array. So depending on whether you have a FlashStack Mini or you have FlashStack, it'll be either an M10 or an M20, M50, or an M70. We use Cisco Nexus switches, so most of our solutions use the Nexus 5K or the Nexus 9K, and then we use Cisco UCS B-Series blades. But we also, again, as I mentioned, support UCS C-Series rack-mount servers. We also have a choice of hypervisors available. So we typically use VMware vSphere, or we can use Hyper-V. And we also support workload deployments on bare metal servers as well. So that option is also available depending on the solution that you're deploying. So one of the really nice things about FlashStack is that we have a modular scalability with FlashStack. So unlike some of the other solutions out in the market, which tend to be fairly rigid in terms of the components, you can start small with FlashStack and you can seamlessly grow to a larger version of FlashStack. So if you deploy, let's say, a FlashStack Mini to start out your deployment, you can very easily grow to a small or a medium or a large deployment, and you can go through the upgrade basically non-disruptively, because the storage can go from an M20, an M10 to an M20 or an M50 or an M70 completely non-disruptively. The updates are done completely non-disruptively. There is no downtime involved, and there is no data migration involved in the upgrade. So very, very typically, people start out with a small deployment of FlashStack, and as the needs grow, they can scale to a larger version of FlashStack. So all of this is being done non-disruptively. And the real benefit that you get from a solution like FlashStack is that these are completely reproducible designs. So we have design guides available on our website, which basically give you a repeatable way of deploying IT infrastructure projects, which basically guarantee sizing, performance, your floor space, power consumption, and also the price of the solution each time you go and deploy the same components of infrastructure. So it gives you a lot of predictability and repeatability in your IT infrastructure projects. So some of the benefits of FlashStack are really, I want to categorize them in four different buckets. So the first is really simplicity, right? So the simplicity comes from the fact that these are pre-validated designs. So if you look at some of the solutions we have published on our website, we give you a very prescriptive way of deploying some of these solutions. And within that, we give you a BOM, we give you some sizing guidelines. So it really helps you eliminate some of the risk that typically goes into deploying IT infrastructure projects. We are using standardized deployment tools. We don't need to go reinvent the wheel every time. So we can use built-in UCS profiles, which really simplify the deployment of UCS compute. The really nice thing about pure storage is that you do not have to do any kind of storage tiering. So all of the storage will basically work out of the box with any workload that you deploy on it. So compare that with the traditional SAN deployments or NAS deployments that you may have, which require a lot of caring and feeding. You don't have that problem with FlashStack. So it really simplifies the day-to-day operations of the IT infrastructure and the different solutions that you deploy on FlashStack. We also have a choice of management platforms. So we integrate into VMware vCenter. So if that's your choice of tool that you want to use for managing FlashStack, we have very solid integration into the entire VMware stack. So we have integration into vCenter. We have integration into the vRealize suite and also the vRealize Operations suite. So if you're deploying virtualized applications and VMware is your platform of choice, we have a lot of different options available within the VMware toolset. Similarly, on the Hyper-V side, we have a lot of integrations available within the Hyper-V portfolio. So you can use native tools within the hypervisor to manage FlashStack, which really simplifies the deployment and eliminates the need for learning new tools to run with FlashStack. The second benefit is really flexibility. So as I mentioned, that the design is fairly modular. So you can start small, scale to a larger FlashStack as the needs grow. We have a fairly flexible consumption model, meaning that we allow you to use existing components that you may have already available in the environment to build out FlashStacks. For example, if you're an existing Cisco customer or if you're an existing Pure Storage customer, you can reuse some of the components that you already have and build out FlashStack converged infrastructure deployments using our design guides. So you don't have to go out and buy new IT infrastructure if you need to deploy FlashStack. You can reuse a lot of the existing gear you might already have in the environment. We also provide a lot of flexibility in terms of how you get support on the solution. So we have three different ways in which you can get support. There's a slide on it in this deck, so I'll talk to that in a little bit more detail on that slide. But there's just a lot of flexibility available in terms of support options. Let's talk about efficiency. So when you look at a all-flash solution for Converged, you're really getting all the benefits you get from an all-flash platform. That means you get the performance, you get the resiliency that comes with an all-flash architecture. You're also getting the density that is available with pure storage flash solutions, and also compute from Cisco UCS. So one of the really nice things about the UCS platform is also their ability to manage multiple compute nodes from one single deployment. So you're getting density in terms of not just storage with pure storage, but also in terms of compute with Cisco UCS. All the software features are built in, so there is nothing else you need to really buy. So UCS Manager is a pretty standard option available with UCS. All the software features in storage are also built in, so there is really nothing additional you need to buy. The upgrades are non-disruptive when you go from one generation to another. So that is providing you a lot of flexibility in terms of when you do your updates. So you can update compute separately from storage, and all of this can be done non-disruptively, which gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of efficiency. And then lastly, in terms of the cost of ownership, there's a lot of different ways in which you can get cost efficiencies when you deploy a FlashStack. Obviously, you're getting a lot of efficiencies because of the dense form factor. So you're using a lot less space in the data center, you're using a lot less power and cooling. You're also able to get really good deduplication when you're using pure storage as your flash array platform of choice for storage. So the benefit from that is that you're able to drive down the cost of the solution because you need a lot less storage now for keeping the same amount of data. The ongoing operational overhead is fairly low, primarily because most of the deployment can be done from tools which are already built in. So tools from VMware, tools from Hyper-V, or from tools within the UCS infrastructure platform. So we have tools such as UCS Manager, UCS Director that we integrate with, and that really helps reduce the overall management overhead and really simplify day-to-day management of FlashStack. So one of the questions that comes up all the time is, how does FlashStack get managed? So we have a lot of different ways in which you can manage FlashStack. So some of the tools that are my favorite are obviously tools from the VMware portfolio, tools from the Microsoft portfolio with Hyper-V. And then we also integrate with UCS Director. So UCS Director, if you're familiar with the UCS Director platform from Cisco, UCS Director is the orchestration engine for managing data center deployments. So we have integration into UCS Director, which allows you to really simplify the deployment of FlashStack, and it also helps you to simplify the ongoing operation of your FlashStack deployment. In addition to that, we have open APIs, both SOAP and REST, which allow us to integrate FlashStack into your existing management tools that you might have. So you can use our REST APIs, which are fairly open, and you can integrate them into your existing platform. So you don't have to go once again, learn brand new tools for managing FlashStack. So that, again, provides some level of familiarity with the existing tools that you might have in your ecosystem. So I want to talk about a little bit more about the UCS Director integration, because UCS Director is just such a phenomenal tool for orchestrating data center deployment. So we have we announced our UCS Director integration a few months ago. We have a plugin that's available openly on GitHub, which is our open source tool repository. You can go download that plugin, and you can use that with UCS Director. What that allows you to do, we have a couple of canned workflows that we have built with UCS Director, which allow you to really simplify the deployment of virtualized infrastructure within your environment. So it really helps you get things going very, very quickly with FlashStack, and it really helps you cut down on the amount of time it takes to provision IT infrastructure resources. So check it out if you are a UCS Director user, and you can go on GitHub. You can find our plugin available today for download. So we have a broad variety of solutions we support with FlashStack. So starting out with business applications like Oracle, SQL, and SAP, we have solutions available for pretty much all of these workloads. On the server and desktop virtualization side, we support VMware, Hyper-V, and we also support Citrix. So depending on what you might be using in your environment, we have solutions available for pretty much all of these workloads, and you can find those solutions on our website today. And those solutions will basically provide you a recipe for deploying FlashStack and deploying these solutions in your environment. So let's talk a little bit about the different support options we have available, because this is another question that keeps coming up, is how do I get support when I'm deploying FlashStack? So there's really three different options in which you can get support. So the number one way is obviously you can call the different vendors. So if you have an existing contract with Cisco, Pure, VMware, or Microsoft, you can directly call the vendors for support, and they can help you out. The second way, which is really the Cisco single call support on FlashStack. So Cisco has an offering called Solution Support for Critical Infrastructure. And through this offering, Cisco will take single call support on FlashStack, and they provide this through their Cisco TAC offering. So Cisco can be the single point of contact for taking calls on support on FlashStack for any support related needs. And then the third option is really through our partner community. So if there is a partner that you particularly like working with that is already certified for FlashStack, then you can potentially get your support contract through that partner. So what partners do is they will take level 1 and level 2 calls on FlashStack, and they will try to triage and troubleshoot the issues in-house as much as possible. And they will work with Pure Storage or Cisco or the hypervisor vendor to escalate the tickets if there is something that they're not able to troubleshoot directly. So they, once again, serve as a single point of contact for any support-related issues that require help. So that's all I had in terms of slides. We'll have time for Q&A. So I'm going to hand it over now to Jack, who's going to talk about how he's deploying FlashStack within that environment. So Jack, I think we're going to hand the control over to you.
Excellent, Meyer. Thanks a lot. I appreciate the setup, and I want to welcome everyone on the call today and say that I'm doing this because I am a strong believer in this FlashStack model. It has transformed our company over the last 3.5 years of working with Pure and Cisco implementation, and so happy to share our story. I want to give you a little background on the company. We provide advertisers a multi-platform solution to reach women across all stages of their life. We heavily focused on digital publishing, performance marketing. We have an e-commerce division. We have a large-scale email publishing division as well. And our primary clients in the advertising space are pharmaceutical advertisers, consumer packaged goods advertisers, and a lot of direct response advertisers. We've been fortunate enough to have pretty substantial growth over the last 6 or 7 years, growing at a top-line growth rate of about 25%. But in the last couple of years, we've highly accelerated that growth with a couple of acquisitions. So our IT infrastructure has needed to keep pace with this pretty substantial growth. In terms of scale, we're running at about 19 million unique visitors across all of our properties, 100 plus million, and some peak months were as much as 150 million page views. We're deploying at least 500 million emails a month, as much as 1.5 billion. Large-scale social footprint. As I mentioned, pretty substantial revenue growth in the last couple of years, and our infrastructure has had to keep pace with this type of growth. But we've entered this mid-market commercial space, and I think that our story will play well to a lot of people, because I think that we have faced a lot of the same challenges as we've grown from a small business up to the scale that we're at now. As we've looked at the different varying workloads that we have across our infrastructure, a lot of very high transactional needs with our email infrastructure. 500 million to 1.5 billion emails a month are generating 4 billion to 10 billion transactions when it fully plays out. But on top of that, we also have a large data center or data warehouse that we need for our analytical purposes to be able to drive optimized revenue and ultimately ROI. And so these two varying contenders for our performance has really created a large challenge for what is really a small team. We've been virtualized for about 10 years because of what we saw coming with VMware and the ability to get away from bare metal and the ability to stay very agile, moving workloads around from server to server. But we've always had been challenged by the kind of lowest common denominator in the tier, which is storage, which has traditionally been fairly slow. We were an EMC customer for a very long time, ultimately got into the storage virtualization, moving away from the traditional RAID striping, going more to block storage, block management of that with the HP 3PAR, and with that we also were using a hybrid solution that did have a tier of flash that we found obviously great performance from, but with the optimization technologies there, it was still no faster than its lowest common denominator as it was trying to keep up with this pretty substantial varied workload. And we had been a UCS customer for about 6 years. We found that moving away from standard 1U rack servers to a UCS B-series model where we were able to keep this modular design to be able to put in new servers had allowed us to stay flexible. But all of this kind of came together as we looked at the challenges when we started entering some hypergrowth in the latter parts of 2013. The early parts of 2013, latter parts of 2012, needing to really deal with a lot of contention in the storage tier. These varied workloads were really impacting the ability to have SLAs around different workloads, whether it be a BI workload that was expected to output a report every morning, that would vary between 6 and 12 hours. And so we were getting a lot of heat from different business units to solve that problem. But the challenge there was to add the additional capacity to our really slowest tier. The only way we could create greater performance at the time was to add additional racks of storage and additional spindles in traditional storage. And so we really looked heavily at flash and trying to figure out, was there a way for us to leverage this this emerging capability that had great potential for solving this. We ultimately found Pure, and they solved another big aspect of this, which was the complexity of tying all these different storage arrays together requires staffing that a company of our scale and size was not capable of supporting. We have 5 people in our IT operations organization. At the time, we did have a dedicated storage engineer who has transitioned into a better part of his career now that he's becoming more of a generalist. But I will say that complexity was one of the biggest challenges we had in our data center that just didn't allow us the ability to just put in additional capacity at the drop of a hat. We're now able to do that. But beyond that, the ongoing maintenance costs of investing into every 5 to 6 years these forklift upgrades where not only did you need the additional floor space or the additional rack space to be able to swap things out, we needed to pay for a complete and total overhaul of whether it be a storage tier or a compute tier. Now with this flash stack model, we're easily able to just swap out components or do an upgrade from a lower tier M series to a higher tier M series, of which we've experienced a couple of these over the last few years of doing business in this way. So why we ultimately chose this flash stack model was that we needed this performance improvement. We needed the ability to meet our SLAs. We needed the ability to deliver to the business their needs and then have the capacity to grow without really being concerned. So in the initial phases of moving on to 100% flash storage, what we realized was that IOPS no longer became any sort of a challenge for us. We really focused a lot on latency, and the beauty with this implementation is we gained both. We gained great IOPS capacity and very low latency. And we're talking less than millisecond type latency on average, small peaks above that. So we're very happy with the performance that we've gotten out of this implementation. Secondly is really the cost of ownership. As I referenced the ongoing maintenance costs that came with traditional storage models, what Pure has come out with is this Evergreen and Flash Forever model, which has really allowed us to make one investment in storage as one of the tiers of our converged infrastructure, and that's now set. I don't have to worry about what's coming down the road. Do I need to get a whole new array because there's newer, faster technology? With the way Pure has put this together for us and is available through their Flash Stack and Evergreen model, it's a really simple model now for us. I can actually go from a cost of ownership perspective, just on the capital expenditure, I can go to my CFO and make the argument that I no longer have to amortize the cost of my array over a 3 or 5 year life because I'm not going to be replacing it. I'm going to be able to amortize that now over a 10 or even 15-year life, which really substantially reduces the overall strain on the P&L. But the other cost of ownership things that have been mentioned from Meyer, really the cost of running the arrays themselves, power, cooling, footprint in a data center, all of those things have been huge benefits that have allowed us to essentially pay for these arrays in the cost reductions that they've allowed for us. And then the other really unintended benefit that we got and as we really looked at the cost of ownership and the performance that we were getting out of these arrays, where we were able to take workloads that were taking 18 to 24 hours and reduce them to 1 to 4 hours, well, that freed up additional capacity for the existing compute and licensing that already existed. So I could probably go on about 4 or 5 other benefits that the cost of ownership it has been a huge win for us with this flash stack model. But I'll go into the other one that kind of plays into that cost of ownership, which is the simplicity. Simplicity of management, single pane of glass for multiple array management, easy plugins, running things out of vCenter to provision storage. Now I don't have to have a dedicated storage admin. Now I can have just a general systems admin provision storage, add additional capacity to any workload that needs it without having to get involved in some deep engineering discussions. That simplicity has been huge for us. We now have really a team of IT generalists that are capable of solving really complex problems that in the past would have taken having to go out to additional professional services engagements, have taken a lot of time planning and ultimately cost involved in that. But this simplicity tied together with the cost of ownership has been a huge win for us. And then fourth, and this has been probably the most refreshing experience that I've had dealing with Pure in the flash stack model, is we no longer have to worry about there being a storage vendor that we have to get a hold of if we're starting to see any sort of problem. And really, we've had very, very little problems. It's really been more proactive. As different revisions of the software come out, we're getting phone calls from the support team. We're getting proactive requests to open up support tunnels, and they take care of these problems. This is unlike any experience that we've had with any other vendor. It's really been something that has been very unique with our experience with Pure, but I will say that it's an unparalleled customer service support sales organization. Has been unbelievable to deal with. But the actual benefits, I mean, really driving down to what we have achieved. From the initial implementation through the most recent, which I'll go into here in a little bit more depth, we've seen at least a 3x improvement in the IOPS performance. So we have capacity now that, quite frankly, we don't even concern ourselves about IOPS performance anymore. And as I mentioned earlier, focusing on latency has really been, a place for us to see how can we get data from the compute layer into the storage layer and back out to the compute layer and ultimately return results in a very fast, consistent way. And we went from seeing peaks and hot points of 100+ milliseconds to pretty consistently under a millisecond, about a half a millisecond max in most big workload timeframes. And so that's allowed us to really improve the business outcomes. So the analytics packages that we're running that we would typically reserve to run over a weekend because it was putting a pretty substantial tax on the overall stack, now we're capable of running those things on a daily basis. 87.5% time reduction in one of our key analytics packages has allowed us to now run that on a daily basis, but also fill up that additional time frame of saved time with new analytical insights. And that's been probably the most impressive and totally unexpected benefit that we've seen by going with this converged model running on Pure Storage, is that most of our administration staff is now focused on business creation, solving real business problems, not solving IT problems. I don't have contention between my IT organization and my BI and DB organization of finger pointing of where's the bottleneck, because there aren't any bottlenecks anymore. We've eliminated those bottlenecks, and so now I'm finding that my teams are working much better together and really now focusing on solving real business problems. And with that additional overhead and compute capacity, because I've got lower latency on the storage side, we're now creating deeper and deeper insights that have really turned my DBA team from an administration team to a business creation team on the BI side. So they're becoming more and more like analysts, which are seen on the business side as providing pretty substantial value. And really, we're now focusing quite a bit on what other insights can we get out of the platform that we have with the existing data we already had. Now we've unlocked a huge amount of capacity. But to give you the story of how we got to where we are today, the FlashStack offering as a named offering when early part of 2013 when we first got onto Pure Storage didn't exist. However, we were already a Cisco Nexus customer, we were already a Cisco UCS customer, and we put Pure Storage behind that. And so for us, that initial aha moment of, wow, we can run 100% all-flash data center. All of our Tier 1 applications moved over inside of a 60-day window. So that's allowed us to achieve these benefits that I mentioned earlier. But what dawned on me in the latter part of 13 was that now I could eliminate all of the spinning disk that I had, racks and racks. I had 3 racks of spinning disk that was just taking up footprint on the data center floor, as well as older servers that were traditional 1U servers. I can consolidate all that down to denser and denser and denser UCS blades. So the early part of 2014, we made a move. We're a co-location customer, so this was something that we were able to do within the same data center, and we moved a couple of arrays over, but ultimately reduced 60% of the footprint that we were paying for all the power, all the cooling, all the space, and we really paid for a second storage array, which has allowed us to achieve even greater benefits as we've scaled out our data need. That's also allowed us, what we did in 2015 is to introduce replication and redundancy across those arrays and really improve our resiliency as a business. So that was a big initiative in 15, but as I referenced earlier, we had a couple of acquisitions in the latter part of 14 and 15. So we got thrown into a bit of disarray as an IT organization, but because of the simplicity we had in our data center, we were able to easily add capacity. We moved a lot of workload out of the cloud. We moved a pretty substantial e-commerce platform onto a FlashStack supported model, and we're saving a substantial amount of money. As you start to look at the total cost benefits and the real monthly expenditures, what we through this acquisition had acquired, it made no sense for us to keep this in the cloud. So we moved this locally, and it's really allowed us the ability to consolidate administration, consolidate any security concerns, and the biggest benefit, save money. But in the latter part of 15, we had a brand new challenge, a new acquisition company based in Boston that had a data center that was on average about 10 years old. Newest piece of equipment in this data center was 7. All bare metal, running an Oracle workload, no virtualization, 100% bare metal. So as we analyzed how we were going to solve this business challenge, we took a look at hyper-converged solutions. I mean, I had a new data center that I needed to light up or solve. So we looked at those hyper-converged solutions. What we found in the hyper-converged solutions was that it did not meet that flexibility that we wanted to maintain, that ability to swap in best-of-breed components from Cisco, best-of-breed components from Pure, and that flexibility that this model, this FlashStack model, has allowed us to really improve our overall IT organization. And I look at it and I liken it to kind of building something out of Legos, where these hyper-converged solutions are very fixed. They're block-based, but you're not capable of creating something that's really a sculpture. And so with this ability to stay flexible with this FlashStack model, I can add just compute, or I can add just storage, or I can add additional network capacity, and really shape my overall IT footprint to meet our needs. And so we went with a full FlashStack model. And so in this data center, took a 4-rack data center, converged it into a single rack data center, fully virtualized everything, and sucked all the data over onto this new platform. And we did it inside of one business quarter. So it was really a race against time for us, because this failing equipment that we had been dealing with, of arrays throwing alerts, of the inability to move different network workloads, we were able to completely virtualize that on a FlashStack reference architecture, and it was a huge win for our business, because what we gained from that, beyond that, improving that data center and now taking it to a 2016 data center, we also now have a secondary data center that I can easily migrate workload from a data center here in California out to Boston. So that flexibility, that agility that this FlashStack model was really the most impressive thing for me to achieve, because now with the same investment I would have made in whether it be a hyper-converged solution or a different type of converged solution, now I have a homogeneous environment that I can actually use for all of my capacity. And that's been a huge win for us without any additional cost. Of course, we actually saved money because we reduced the data center footprint there by 75%. So just kind of wrapping up here, what we have seen working with this FlashStack model and dealing with Pure Storage on the back end has really shifted our IT workforce into from really a cost center to a revenue center. It's been great for the careers of the individuals involved. It's been fantastic for us as an IT organization. We're now seen as not a bottleneck in any type of business planning. We're seen as a partner, and so that's really helped. And we have really have an evolving workload now. So I look at as one of our e-commerce platforms, highly horizontal scale, I can actually do all of that now on the same infrastructure without any additional investment or learning curve. And really that business insight that we're creating off of this platform has really been the biggest win of all. our DB team is now seen as a champion within the business, and that's been a huge win for us. But that's our story. I think that you can hear the passion in the way I talk about it, but I can tell you it has been a very transformational experience for us. Happy to share further with anyone who wants to ask any questions, but I'm going to kick it back over to Scott now so that he can wrap up.
Jack, thank you very much for that in-depth look at what LifeScript is doing with Pure's FlashStack. And we do have a number of questions from the audience, and we're going to take those, and then we're going to do a Q&A. Now, this is for Jack and Mayur. We have a number of people who have asked questions around FlashStack Mini. And there was some questions around what is when we talk about a less than $100,000 configuration, what does that look like? What does it start?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So the $100,000 price point gets you 4 blades of UCS, and it gets you 15 terabytes usable capacity within FlashStack. So that's based on our 5 terabyte raw model of M10, and assume a fairly conservative 3-to-1 dedupe. It's about 15 terabytes of usable capacity.
And does that also include the Fabric Interconnect switches?
So Fabric Interconnects, since we use UCS Mini, the Fabric Interconnects are actually built into the chassis itself.
Okay.
And so those are included. There isn't really a separate switch for the Fabric Interconnects, unlike a more traditional UCS environment. So Fabric Interconnect is built into the UCS Mini platform, and it's included in the cost.
Now, one of the questions is, how does the FlashStack Mini compare to some of the SMB hyperconverged solutions that have hit the market?
Yeah, so I think each of the approaches have their merits, right? So converged and hyperconverged are really, it's a philosophical discussion, to be really honest with you. I can talk to you a little bit about how we think we differ and how we think we do things a little bit better as compared to the hyperconverged solutions. So with the Pure Storage flash array, some of the benefits you get are that you can start small and you can grow pretty much seamlessly to a larger configuration without taking any kind of downtime. So that's really benefit number one. You're getting the benefit of the all-flash architecture. A lot of the hyperconverged solutions tend to be based on hybrid storage, and that seems to work okay in some of the low-end use cases, such as remote office deployments or VDI deployments. But if you are really looking to put any meaningful enterprise workload on a converged solution, you really need an all-flash solution. So that's where FlashStack really shines. Another benefit I can highlight is our Evergreen storage model. So the Evergreen storage model really allows you to keep your storage array essentially forever in the environment, right? And how we do that is because of the architecture we have for our storage product itself. So it's a stateless architecture, so we don't keep any metadata on the controllers. So the controllers are completely stateless. We can swap them out, and we have the Evergreen storage maintenance program, which allows you to get free controller upgrades every 3 years. And we also allow you to consolidate your capacity from less dense SSDs to more dense SSDs. So happy to talk to anyone wanting more information about this offline, but those are just some of the benefits that we see FlashStack has over some of the hyperconverged solutions that are out there in the market today.
Let's ask one more question. What about licensing, VMware and Cisco licenses? How does that work in the FlashStack configuration?
So the licensing is, you have to, most of the times when we do the coding, the partners do the coding, we will include the licensing costs of the Pure and Cisco components. So really there isn't anything extra you need to license on the Pure Storage side because we have an all-inclusive pricing model. On the Cisco side, depending on the options you get, you may have to get additional licensing. And then a lot of customers tend to have existing ELAs or enterprise buying agreements with their hypervisor vendors. So depending on the situation, we might end up quoting the hypervisor or not. In most cases, the customer already has access to VMware or Hyper-V licenses. So in most cases, the hypervisor licenses are typically not included.
Excellent. And we are out of time, so we're going to move on to the prize portion of our program today. And we have for today a Google Nexus 6P 32 gig. And our winner today is Les Allard, Allard. Les, Actual Tech Media will be reaching out to you for your prize. And we'd like to thank today's audience for being here. We'd like to thank Pure and LifeScript, Meyer and Jack, for being here today with us. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
And everyone have a great day. Thank you very much.